You've been carrying something invisible, haven't you? Something that weighs more than gravity itself, pressing down on your consciousness like a dense field of energy that follows you everywhere you go. Most people call it guilt, shame, regret. But what if I told you that what you're experiencing is actually a quantum phenomenon? What if the emotional weight you've been dragging through your reality isn't just psychological noise, but an actual energetic mass that's been accumulating in your field, reaching a critical point that only 1% of people ever recognize, let alone release? Here's what no one tells you about quantum weight. It's not metaphorical. It's not just a feeling. It's a measurable distortion in your personal reality field, created by unresolved emotional energy that has crystallized into density patterns around specific memories, decisions, and experiences. And right now, as you're listening to these words, your quantum weight has reached what physicists would call a phase transition point, a moment where the accumulated density either transforms into something else entirely or collapses your entire energetic system into a smaller, more contracted state of being. You feel it, don't you? That sense that something has to give, that you can't carry this invisible burden much longer without something fundamentally changing in your life. That's not weakness talking. That's your consciousness recognizing that you've reached the breaking point where the old patterns can no longer sustain themselves. Let me take you deeper into what's really happening here. Every unresolved emotion, every moment of self-judgment, every replay of past mistakes creates what quantum field theory calls a standing wave pattern in your personal energy field. These patterns don't just fade away on their own. They accumulate. They interact with each other. They create interference patterns that literally reshape how reality responds to your presence in it. Think about this. When you carry guilt about something you said 10 years ago, that guilt isn't just a memory. It's an active energy signature that continues to broadcast into the field around you. It attracts circumstances that mirror that frequency back to you. It influences the choices you make, the opportunities you notice or miss, the way other people respond to your energy when you walk into a room. This is why some people seem to effortlessly attract abundance, love, and success, while others, despite doing all the right things, saying all the right affirmations, following all the right strategies, find themselves stuck in patterns that feel like pushing against an invisible wall. The difference isn't in their actions. The difference is in their quantum weight. But here's where this gets revolutionary. Here's where everything changes. Your quantum weight isn't permanent. It's not a life sentence. It's not evidence that you're broken or fundamentally flawed. Your quantum weight is actually a gift that's been disguised as a burden, because it's been showing you exactly where your consciousness is ready to expand into greater coherence, greater freedom, greater authentic power. The guilt you carry about hurting someone you loved, that's not just guilt. That's compressed wisdom about how to love more skillfully. The shame about mistakes you made in your career, that's not just shame. That's concentrated intelligence about how to align your actions with your deeper values. The regret about opportunities you missed, that's not just regret. That's refined awareness of what actually matters to you. Every piece of quantum weight you carry contains within it the exact frequency of wisdom that your consciousness is calling forth. But you have to be willing to extract that wisdom instead of just carrying the weight. Let me show you something that will shift your entire relationship to what you've been calling your baggage. Close your eyes for a moment and bring to mind one specific thing you feel guilty about. One memory that still makes your chest tighten when you think about it. Got it? Good. Now, instead of focusing on what you did wrong, what you should have done differently, or how you've been punishing yourself for it, I want you to ask a different question. What quality of love, what depth of wisdom, what aspect of your authentic power is this experience trying to teach you to embody? Feel that shift. That's the moment when quantum weight begins its transformation from dense, contractive energy into expansive, creative potential. You're not changing what happened. You're changing the quantum signature of your relationship to what happened. This is the secret that only 1% of people discover. Quantum weight isn't released by forgetting, by pretending it never happened, or by convincing yourself it doesn't matter. Quantum weight is released by extracting its wisdom so completely that the original experience becomes a source of power rather than a drain on your energy. But here's the thing, and this is crucial. This transformation doesn't happen through thinking your way out of it. It doesn't happen through analyzing your past or understanding the psychological reasons why you made certain choices. Quantum weight operates at the level of your energy field, which means it can only be transformed through direct energetic engagement, through conscious interaction with the field itself. You've been trying to solve an energetic problem with mental strategies, and that's like trying to move a mountain with a teaspoon. It can't be done. But when you approach quantum weight as an actual energetic phenomenon, when you learn to work with it at the level where it actually exists, the transformation happens faster than your mind can track. Take a moment and comment below with this phrase: I am ready to transform my quantum weight into conscious power. This isn't just a comment. It's an energetic declaration, a conscious interruption in the loop of carrying old density. It's your signal to the quantum field that you're ready to engage with this process at the level where real change becomes possible. Here's what happens when you begin working with quantum weight consciously instead of unconsciously. First, you stop adding new density to your field. You learn to process experiences in real time instead of storing them as unresolved energy patterns. This alone will change the trajectory of your entire life, because you stop accumulating the very thing that's been weighing down your reality. Second, you begin to actively transmute existing quantum weight through what I call conscious extraction. This is the process of deliberately engaging with stored emotional patterns, not to relive them or analyze them, but to extract their wisdom essence and release their density. It's like mining gold from ore. You're separating the valuable intelligence from the heavy material that's been weighing you down. Third, you start to recognize quantum weight as it's forming, before it crystallizes into long-term patterns. You develop the sensitivity to feel when an experience is beginning to create density in your field, and you have the tools to work with it immediately, transforming potential weight into immediate wisdom. This is where most people get stuck, though. They understand the concept intellectually, but they don't know how to actually work with energy at the quantum level. They don't have a practical methodology for engaging with their field in a way that creates real transformation rather than just temporary relief. Let me give you a framework that you can start using immediately. I call it the Quantum Weight Transformation Protocol, and it works by engaging with the three fundamental aspects of any quantum weight pattern: its energetic signature, its wisdom content, and its release mechanism. The energetic signature is the specific frequency that the weight creates in your field. Every type of quantum weight has its own vibrational fingerprint. Guilt feels different from shame. Regret feels different from resentment. Disappointment feels different from fear. Learning to identify these signatures precisely is the first step in working with them consciously. The wisdom content is the intelligence, the teaching, the expansion of consciousness that the experience is offering you. This isn't the lesson your mind thinks you should learn. It's the actual frequency of awareness that wants to emerge through your engagement with this particular experience. Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's completely different from what you would expect. The release mechanism is the specific way that this particular pattern wants to be transformed. Some quantum weight releases through forgiveness, but not the kind of forgiveness most people think about. Some releases through creative expression. Some releases through service to others. Some releases through simply being witnessed and acknowledged. The key is learning to feel into what each pattern actually needs, rather than imposing a one-size-fits-all approach. Here's a specific practice you can do right now. Choose one piece of quantum weight that you're ready to work with. Something significant enough that you can feel its presence in your body, but not so overwhelming that it destabilizes you to engage with it. First, locate its energetic signature. Where do you feel it in your body? What's the quality of that sensation? Heavy? Tight? Hot? Cold? Sharp? Diffuse? Breathe with it for a few moments without trying to change it, just developing familiarity with its specific energy. Next, ask the pattern directly. What are you here to teach me? What quality of consciousness wants to emerge through this experience? Don't think the answer. Feel for it. Let it arise from your body, from your heart, from someplace deeper than your analytical mind. Trust the first thing that comes, even if it doesn't make complete sense yet. Finally, ask, how do you want to be transformed? What do you need from me to release your wisdom and dissolve your weight? Again, feel for the answer rather than thinking it. Sometimes it's as simple as acknowledging what happened without judgment. Sometimes it's writing a letter you'll never send. Sometimes it's having a conversation with someone. Sometimes it's creating something beautiful. Sometimes it's just holding the experience in your heart with complete compassion for the person you were when it happened. If this resonance is touching something deep in you, if you can feel something shifting just from engaging with these concepts, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency, this space of conscious engagement with the quantum mechanics of transformation. This is where we explore the intersection of science and spirit, where we learn to work with reality at the level where it can actually be changed. The most important thing to understand is that quantum weight isn't your enemy. It's not evidence of your failure or proof that you're somehow defective. Quantum weight is your consciousness's way of preserving experiences that contain essential wisdom for your evolution. The problem isn't that you have quantum weight. The problem is that no one ever taught you how to work with it consciously. Think about it this way. Every master, every sage, every person who has ever made a profound contribution to human consciousness has carried quantum weight. The difference is they learn to transform it into wisdom, into compassion, into power that serves life rather than contracts it. They learn to see their difficult experiences not as evidence of their unworthiness, but as the raw material for their greatest gifts to the world. Your quantum weight contains the seeds of your most authentic contribution to life. The experiences that have created the most density in your field are often the same experiences that contain the wisdom, the compassion, the understanding that the world most needs you to embody and share. But you have to be willing to engage with the transformation process. You have to be willing to stop carrying these experiences as proof of your limitations and start engaging with them as gateways to your expansion. You have to be willing to do the energetic work of actually transforming quantum weight, rather than just managing it or coping with it. Here's what I've observed after working with thousands of people who have successfully released their quantum weight. The transformation always happens in layers. You don't release decades of accumulated density in a single moment of insight. But you can release it layer by layer, pattern by pattern, as you develop the capacity to hold greater levels of consciousness without contracting back into old protective patterns. The first layer is usually the most obvious. The big, dramatic experiences that you already know have been weighing you down. The divorce, the business failure, the betrayal, the loss. These are relatively easy to identify and work with because you're already aware of their impact on your life. The second layer is more subtle. The patterns of self-judgment, the ways you've been unconsciously punishing yourself, the small betrayals of your own truth that have accumulated over time. These create quantum weight not through single dramatic events, but through the slow accumulation of moments when you chose something smaller than what your heart was calling for. The third layer is the deepest. The unconscious agreements you made about yourself, other people, and life itself based on early experiences that you may not even consciously remember. These agreements become the gravitational field around which all your other experiences organize themselves, and they often require the most subtle and sophisticated approaches to transform. But here's the beautiful thing. You don't have to figure out all three layers at once. You don't have to have a complete map of your entire quantum weight system before you can start working with it. You just have to start somewhere, with whatever layer is most accessible to you right now, and trust that the process will unfold naturally as your capacity to hold higher frequencies develops. The key is consistency rather than intensity. It's better to do 5 minutes of conscious quantum weight transformation every day than to have one dramatic breakthrough session followed by months of unconscious accumulation. The field responds to sustained engagement, to the steady development of new patterns, to the patient cultivation of greater energetic coherence. And here's something crucial that most people miss. As you release quantum weight, you have to be prepared for your external reality to shift in ways that might initially feel disorienting. When you stop carrying old density, when you stop broadcasting certain frequencies into the field, the circumstances and relationships that were organized around those frequencies will naturally begin to reorganize themselves. This can feel destabilizing at first. People might respond to you differently. Opportunities that were previously invisible might suddenly become available. Situations that felt stuck might suddenly start moving. This isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's evidence that the transformation is working, that your relationship to the field is actually changing. But you have to be prepared to navigate these shifts with awareness, rather than unconsciously contracting back into familiar patterns because the expansion feels too unfamiliar, too vulnerable, too much like stepping into unknown territory. This is where most people sabotage their own transformation. They do the work to release quantum weight. They start to feel lighter, more free, more authentically themselves. And then the fear of that much aliveness, that much possibility, causes them to unconsciously recreate familiar limitations because at least those limitations feel predictable and safe. The question you have to ask yourself is, are you more committed to your familiar limitations or to your authentic expansion? Are you more loyal to the story you've been telling about why your life has to be difficult, or to the possibility that your life could be an expression of joy, creativity, and genuine contribution? Because here's what happens when you successfully transform your quantum weight. You don't just feel better. You don't just release old pain. You actually become available to contribute to life in ways that were impossible when you were carrying all that density. You become a different kind of presence in every room you enter. You start attracting different people, different opportunities, different possibilities. Your relationships become more authentic because you're no longer trying to manage other people's reactions to your unresolved density. Your work becomes more aligned because you're no longer driven by the need to prove something or compensate for something. Your creativity becomes more alive because it's no longer filtered through layers of self-judgment and fear. This isn't just personal healing. This is conscious evolution. Every person who successfully transforms their quantum weight into wisdom becomes a different kind of influence in the collective field. They become someone who makes it easier for other people to remember their own authentic nature, to feel permission to be more real, to take the risks that their heart is calling them to take. The ripple effects of one person doing this work consciously extend far beyond what that person will ever know. When you transform your quantum weight, you're not just changing your own life. You're changing what becomes possible in the lives of everyone whose field intersects with yours. So take a moment right now and feel into this possibility. What would it be like to wake up tomorrow morning without the invisible weight you've been carrying? What would it be like to move through your day from a place of lightness, clarity, authentic power, rather than from the contracted energy of old density? What would it be like to engage with challenges from a place of curiosity and creative problem-solving, rather than from the fear that you're somehow not enough to handle whatever life brings you? What would it be like to love other people from your wholeness rather than from your wounds? This isn't fantasy. This isn't positive thinking. This is the natural result of learning to work with your energy field consciously, of transforming quantum weight into the wisdom and power it has always contained. But you have to make a choice. You have to decide whether you're going to continue carrying these patterns unconsciously, letting them determine the trajectory of your life, or whether you're going to engage with them as the raw material for your conscious evolution. The process I'm describing isn't always comfortable. Transformation rarely is, but it's not the kind of discomfort that comes from forcing yourself to be something you're not. It's the discomfort that comes from finally allowing yourself to be everything you actually are, without the protective limitations that have been keeping you small. It's the discomfort of expansion, of stepping into a larger version of yourself, of taking up the energetic space that you were actually designed to occupy in the world. It's the discomfort of authenticity in a world that often rewards performance, of depth in a culture that often values superficial success, of genuine power in systems that are organized around power over others rather than power with life itself. But this discomfort is temporary. It's the growing pains of consciousness expanding beyond its previous containers. And on the other side of that discomfort is a quality of aliveness, creativity, and genuine joy that most people have never experienced, because most people never do the work to clear the accumulated density that makes such experiences impossible. You're different, though. The fact that you're still here, still listening, still feeling into these possibilities means that some part of you recognizes that you're ready for this level of transformation. Some part of you knows that you didn't come here to live a small, defensive, weight-laden life. You came here to discover what becomes possible when human consciousness engages consciously with the quantum field that underlies all experience. The quantum field is always responsive. It's always ready to reorganize itself around higher frequencies, greater coherence, more authentic expressions of consciousness. But it needs conscious participants. It needs people who are willing to do the internal work that makes external transformation possible. Now, what we're exploring today, this understanding of quantum weight and its transformation, this is really just the surface layer of a much deeper system of consciousness mastery. If you're feeling something shift as we dive into these concepts, if this resonates with the deeper transformation you've been seeking, then you'll want to explore the complete framework I've developed in Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. It reveals the 9 master frequencies that govern reality creation and the step-by-step practices for moving from unconscious transmission to becoming the conscious broadcast itself. It's linked in the pinned comment below. Your quantum weight has reached its breaking point, not because you've failed at something, but because you've succeeded at accumulating enough density to create the pressure necessary for a phase transition into something entirely different. This is your consciousness calling you toward your next level of evolution. The only question is whether you're going to answer that call or continue trying to manage the weight that's asking to be transformed into wisdom. Drop one word below that captures the energy you're choosing to embody as you step into this transformation. Let that word be your energetic signature to the quantum field, your declaration of what you're ready to become. And if you feel called to stay connected to this frequency, to this ongoing exploration of how consciousness and quantum mechanics intersect to create practical transformation, then subscribe not just to stay informed, but to stay coherent with this expanding field of possibility. The more of us who do this work, who transform our quantum weight into conscious power, the more the world itself begins to reflect that possibility back to everyone. We're not just healing our own lives, we're participating in the evolution of consciousness itself. Your quantum weight was never your burden. It was always your invitation to become who you actually came here to be. The breaking point isn't a breakdown. It's a breakthrough waiting to happen. The field is ready. The question is, are you? But before you answer that question, let me share something with you that will completely reframe how you understand this entire process. There's a phenomenon that quantum physicists call observer collapse. The idea that the very act of conscious observation causes quantum possibilities to collapse into specific realities. What most people don't realize is that your quantum weight isn't just affecting your personal reality field. It's actively participating in the observer collapse function that determines what version of reality you experience moment by moment. Every piece of unresolved density in your field acts like a lens that filters your perception of what's possible. When you carry guilt about past relationships, you literally cannot see relationship possibilities that exist outside the frequency of that guilt. When you carry shame about your worthiness, you become energetically blind to opportunities that would require you to value yourself differently. When you carry fear about your capabilities, you unconsciously filter out circumstances that would call forth greater expressions of your power. This is why two people can live in the same city, work in the same industry, have similar backgrounds and qualifications, yet experience completely different realities. It's not just about their beliefs or their actions. It's about the quantum weight they carry and how that weight shapes their observer function, determining which possibilities collapse into their actual experience and which remain invisible in the field of potential. Think about the last time you were in a situation where you felt completely stuck, where it seemed like there were no good options, no way forward, no possibility for change. I guarantee you that if you could have stepped outside your quantum weight in that moment, if you could have observed that situation from a completely clear field, you would have seen dozens of possibilities that were energetically invisible to you because they existed at frequencies your weight prevented you from accessing. This is perhaps the most profound implication of understanding quantum weight. You're not just carrying emotional baggage, you're carrying perceptual limitations that literally determine which version of reality you get to experience. Your quantum weight isn't just making you feel bad, it's making entire categories of possibility unavailable to your conscious awareness. But here's where this gets even more interesting. Recent research in quantum biology suggests that consciousness itself operates through quantum coherence mechanisms in the microtubules of neurons. What this means is that the state of coherence or incoherence in your consciousness directly affects your brain's ability to process information, form new neural pathways, and integrate complex patterns of meaning. When you carry quantum weight, you're literally operating in a state of quantum decoherence. Your consciousness fragments across multiple unresolved timelines. Part of you stuck in past experiences, part of you afraid of future possibilities. Only a small fraction actually present and available to engage with what's happening now. This fragmentation doesn't just affect your emotional state. It affects your cognitive capacity, your creative intelligence, your ability to see solutions that require integrated thinking. This is why so many people feel like they're living at a fraction of their actual potential. They are. Their quantum weight is keeping most of their consciousness locked up in past tense patterns, unavailable for present moment creativity and future tense possibility. Let me show you what I mean through a specific example. Imagine someone who experienced a business failure 5 years ago. On the surface, they've moved on. They have a new job. They've rationalized the experience. They've told themselves they've learned from it. But energetically, a significant portion of their consciousness is still locked in the quantum signature of that failure. Every time they encounter a situation that reminds their nervous system of that original experience, making a risky decision, stepping into leadership, trusting their judgment about an opportunity, their consciousness automatically splits. Part of them engages with the present moment, but part of them unconsciously references the old failure pattern, creating quantum interference that literally prevents them from accessing their full intelligence and creative capacity in that moment. This isn't happening because they're weak or unhealed. It's happening because quantum weight creates what physicists call quantum entanglement between your present moment awareness and past tense experiences. Your consciousness becomes entangled with the unresolved energy of those experiences, which means that any similar frequency in the present moment automatically activates the entire quantum signature of the past experience. Breaking this entanglement isn't just about emotional healing. It requires actual quantum decoherence techniques that allow your consciousness to disentangle from past tense patterns and become fully present and available for present moment creation. Here's a practice that works with quantum decoherence directly. Think of a situation in your life right now where you feel stuck or limited, where you can't seem to access your full capacity for creative problem solving. As you bring that situation to mind, notice how thinking about it affects your body, your breathing, your overall energy state. Now, instead of trying to solve the problem or figure out what to do about it, I want you to scan your consciousness for any past experiences that feel similar to this current situation. Don't analyze the connections. Just notice what memories, what emotional signatures, what past experiences seem to resonate with the energy of your current challenge. Once you've identified those connections, imagine that there are quantum threads of light connecting your present moment awareness to each of those past experiences. See these threads clearly in your mind's eye. Notice their color, their thickness, their quality. These threads represent the quantum entanglement that's keeping part of your consciousness locked in past tense patterns. Now, with great love and appreciation for everything those past experiences taught you, begin to consciously dissolve these quantum threads. You're not rejecting or denying those experiences. You're simply freeing your consciousness from being entangled with them so that all of your awareness can be present and available for current moment creation. As you dissolve each thread, notice how your relationship to your current challenge begins to shift. Notice how possibilities that were previously invisible begin to emerge in your awareness. Notice how your body begins to feel more spacious, more alive, more capable of engaging with complexity without contracting into old protective patterns. This is quantum decoherence in action, the conscious disentanglement of your present moment awareness from past tense energetic patterns. And the more you practice this, the more your observer function begins to operate from quantum coherence rather than quantum weight, which means you begin to collapse different possibilities into your reality. But there's another layer to this that I need to share with you, because understanding quantum weight purely in personal terms misses its larger significance. Your quantum weight isn't just affecting your individual reality, it's contributing to what scientists call the collective unconscious field, or what quantum physicists refer to as non-local correlation effects. Every piece of unresolved quantum weight that exists in individual consciousness contributes to collective patterns that influence the probability fields that determine what kinds of experiences become available to humanity as a whole. When large numbers of people carry similar types of quantum weight, collective trauma, shared limiting beliefs, inherited patterns of fear or scarcity, these create what we might call collective quantum weight that makes certain types of global experiences more probable and others less likely to manifest. This is why individual transformation work isn't just personal development. It's actually a form of service to the evolution of consciousness itself. Every person who successfully transforms their quantum weight into wisdom and authentic power literally makes it easier for other people to access higher possibilities, because they're reducing the collective density that limits what can emerge in the shared field of human experience. Think about the people in your life who seem to naturally elevate the energy of any room they enter, who make everyone around them feel more capable, more hopeful, more connected to their own authentic nature. These people have usually done deep work to transform their quantum weight, and their presence creates what quantum field theorists call morphic resonance. Their clear field makes it easier for others to access clarity in their own field. But this also means that when you continue to carry unresolved quantum weight, you're not just limiting your own possibilities. You're unconsciously contributing to the collective limitations that make it harder for everyone to access their full potential. This isn't about guilt or responsibility in the conventional sense. It's about understanding that consciousness is fundamentally interconnected, and the state of your individual field affects the coherence of the larger field we all participate in. This perspective completely changes the motivation for doing this work. You're not just healing yourself, you're participating in the healing of consciousness itself. You're not just expanding your own possibilities, you're contributing to the expansion of what becomes possible for humanity as a whole. And here's something beautiful that happens when you approach quantum weight transformation from this larger perspective. The work becomes easier, not harder. When you're doing it just for yourself, you often encounter resistance from the parts of your psyche that are afraid of change, afraid of being different, afraid of stepping outside familiar limitations. But when you understand that your transformation serves something larger than your personal comfort, when you feel the larger field calling you toward greater coherence, that resistance begins to dissolve naturally. You stop fighting against your limitations and start feeling genuinely curious about what wants to emerge through their transformation. You stop trying to force yourself to be different and start allowing yourself to be drawn forward by the intelligence that exists in the field itself. This is what I call field-sourced transformation, allowing the larger intelligence of the quantum field to guide and support your individual transformation process, rather than trying to figure it all out with your personal will and understanding. But to access field-sourced transformation, you have to develop what I call quantum sensitivity, the ability to feel into the subtle energetic information that's constantly available in the field around you. Most people are so focused on the density of their quantum weight that they can't feel the intelligence that's always present, always ready to support their evolution, always offering the next step in their transformation process. Quantum sensitivity isn't psychic ability in the mystical sense. It's simply the natural capacity of consciousness to perceive and interact with the information field that quantum physics tells us underlies all physical reality. Everyone has this capacity, but most people have learned to ignore it in favor of processing only the information that comes through their 5 physical senses. Developing quantum sensitivity starts with learning to feel the difference between the contracted energy of quantum weight and the expansive energy of quantum coherence in your own field. As you become more sensitive to these differences in yourself, you naturally begin to feel them in the environment around you, in other people, in situations and opportunities. This sensitivity allows you to navigate life from an entirely different operating system. Instead of trying to figure out what to do based on mental analysis and past experience, you begin to feel into what the field itself is calling forth. What wants to emerge? What direction carries the most life force and creative potential? Here's a practice for developing quantum sensitivity. Sit quietly and bring to mind 2 different experiences from your life. One that represents quantum weight, something that still feels contracted or heavy when you think about it, and one that represents quantum coherence, something that feels expansive and alive when you remember it. Spend a few moments really feeling into the energetic signature of the quantum weight experience. Notice how it affects your breathing, your posture, the sense of space in your body. Notice how it affects your mental clarity, your emotional state, your sense of what's possible. Now shift to the quantum coherence experience. Feel how different this energy signature is. Notice how it affects your body differently, how it opens up different possibilities in your mind, how it changes your relationship to yourself and to life itself. The more clearly you can feel this difference, the more you can use quantum sensitivity to navigate toward coherence and away from weight in your daily life. You begin to notice when a conversation, a decision, a direction of thinking is moving you toward quantum weight, and you can course correct before patterns crystallize into long-term density. You also begin to notice when opportunities, relationships, or creative impulses carry the signature of quantum coherence, and you can move toward them with confidence even when your mind doesn't understand exactly why they feel right. This kind of field-based navigation completely changes how you move through life. Instead of being driven by fear, obligation, or external expectations, you become genuinely curious about what the field is calling forth through your unique consciousness, what wants to emerge through your specific gifts and life experience. But quantum sensitivity also reveals something profound about the nature of time itself. and how quantum weight affects your relationship to past, present, and future. Most people experience time as linear, past behind them, future ahead of them, present as a thin slice between the two. But quantum physics shows us that time is far more fluid and interconnected than this linear model suggests. When you carry quantum weight, you're literally living in multiple time streams simultaneously. Part of your consciousness is stuck in past tense experiences, part is anxious about future possibilities, and only a small fraction is actually present and available for current moment creation. This temporal fragmentation creates what I call quantum jet lag, a chronic sense of being out of sync with the natural flow of life, always a step behind or ahead of what's actually happening. Quantum weight doesn't just make you feel bad, it makes you temporarily incoherent. You lose access to the natural rhythm and intelligence that emerges when consciousness is fully present and integrated. This is why people often report that their most creative insights, their clearest decisions, their most authentic expressions happen when they're in states of flow, states where quantum weight is temporarily suspended and consciousness becomes fully coherent in present time. Transforming quantum weight isn't just about releasing old pain. It's about reclaiming your natural temporal coherence, your ability to be fully present with whatever's happening now, while remaining open to the creative possibilities that want to emerge through present moment awareness. This has profound implications for how you approach both personal goals and creative projects. Instead of trying to force outcomes based on mental planning and willpower, you learn to feel into the natural timing and sequencing that exists in the field itself. You learn to sense when something is ready to emerge and when it needs more gestation time. You learn to collaborate with the intelligence of the field rather than trying to impose your personal agenda on reality. This doesn't make you passive or ineffective. It makes you exponentially more powerful because you're working with the natural forces of creation rather than against them. Your actions become expressions of field intelligence rather than products of personal effort, which means they carry far more creative power and tend to produce results that exceed what you could have planned or imagined. But perhaps the most important aspect of quantum weight transformation is understanding its relationship to what I call authentic power. Most people's relationship to power has been shaped by quantum weight patterns, either the power over dynamics they experienced or witnessed, or the powerlessness they felt in situations where their authentic nature wasn't welcome or supported. These experiences create quantum weight around power itself, which means that even when people desire to express their gifts more fully, to take up more space, to have greater influence in the world, their quantum weight around power prevents them from accessing the very thing they're seeking. True power, what I call authentic power, isn't power over others or power against circumstances. Authentic power is the natural result of consciousness operating in quantum coherence, expressing its unique gifts without distortion from unresolved patterns. It's power with life, power in service of what wants to emerge, power that enhances rather than diminishes the field for everyone. But most people can't access authentic power because their quantum weight creates energetic contradictions. They want to be powerful, but they're afraid of becoming like the people who misused power in their past experience. They want to be influential, but they carry shame about taking up space. They want to express their gifts, but they're afraid of being judged or rejected. These contradictions create what quantum physicists call destructive interference patterns. Their desire for authentic expression and their fear of authentic expression cancel each other out, leaving them stuck in patterns of playing small while feeling frustrated about their lack of impact. Transforming quantum weight around power requires a completely different approach than traditional empowerment work. It requires understanding that authentic power isn't something you develop or acquire. It's something you uncover by removing the energetic interferences that prevent your natural power from expressing itself freely. Your authentic power is already present. It's the unique way that life force wants to express itself through your specific consciousness, gifts, and experience. Quantum weight doesn't create powerlessness. It obscures your access to the power that's already there. This is why forced empowerment techniques often fail or create temporary changes that don't last. You can't build authentic power on a foundation of unresolved quantum weight any more than you can build a stable structure on unstable ground. The weight will eventually undermine whatever you try to construct on top of it. But when you transform quantum weight into wisdom, when you clear the energetic interferences that have been blocking your natural expression, authentic power emerges spontaneously. You don't have to learn how to be powerful. You just have to stop carrying the patterns that make authentic power feel dangerous or unavailable. This kind of power transformation ripples out into every aspect of your life. Your relationships become more authentic because you're no longer managing other people's reactions to your unexpressed energy. Your work becomes more aligned because you're expressing your actual gifts rather than compensating for what you think you lack. Your creative expression becomes more alive because it's sourcing from your authentic nature rather than from patterns of trying to prove something or avoid something. The final piece I want to share with you about quantum weight transformation is perhaps the most subtle, but also the most important. As you do this work, as you begin to clear the accumulated density from your field, you'll start to notice that your relationship to difficulty itself begins to change. Most people experience challenges as evidence that something is wrong, that they're not doing life correctly, that they need to fix or change something about themselves or their circumstances. But when you understand quantum mechanics, when you understand how consciousness interacts with the field of possibility, you begin to see challenges as information. Feedback from the field about where your consciousness is ready to expand into greater coherence. Difficulties become interesting rather than threatening. Problems become puzzles that reveal where your consciousness is being called to evolve rather than evidence of your inadequacy. Resistance becomes information about where old patterns are ready to transform rather than proof that you should give up or try harder. This shift in perspective is profound because it means you stop wasting energy fighting against what's happening and start getting curious about what it's revealing, what it's calling forth, what it's trying to teach you about your next level of evolution. But this perspective only becomes authentic when it emerges from actual quantum weight transformation, not from trying to think your way into a more positive attitude. When you're still carrying significant quantum weight, trying to see challenges as opportunities feels forced and superficial because part of your consciousness is still operating from old patterns of fear and limitation. When quantum weight transforms into wisdom, this shift in perspective happens naturally because you're no longer filtering experience through layers of unresolved density. You can see the intelligence in challenging situations because your perception isn't being distorted by the weight of old experiences. This is the ultimate gift of quantum weight transformation. Not just feeling better, not just releasing old pain, but developing the capacity to see and work with the intelligence that's present in every moment, even the difficult ones. You become someone who can find creative possibilities in challenging circumstances, who can maintain coherence under pressure, who can support others in seeing beyond their current limitations. You become what the field itself wants to express through human consciousness: an agent of evolution, a catalyst for transformation, a presence that makes it easier for life to express its highest possibilities through whatever circumstances arise. This is what it means to live from quantum coherence rather than quantum weight. This is what becomes possible when you do the work to transform the accumulated density that has been limiting your access to your own authentic nature and creative power. The field is always ready for this transformation. The intelligence is always present. The support is always available. The only question is whether you're ready to engage with the process that makes this transformation actual rather than theoretical. Your quantum weight has reached its breaking point because your consciousness is ready for its next evolutionary leap. The pressure you've been feeling isn't a problem to solve. It's the creative tension that precedes every genuine transformation. The field is ready. The moment is here. The question is, are you